Differences between Ijara and a conventional lease. How is Ijara different from conventional leasing? In an Ijara lease, rent is charged only after the lessee has taken delivery of the asset. But in a conventional lease, the lease commences on the agreement date or the date when the bank releases funds for purchase of the assets to be leased, irrespective of whether the lessee has taken delivery of the asset or not. Charging rent before the lessee has taken delivery of the asset amounts to charging rent on the money disbursed. This is riba and thus prohibited by Sharia. In an Ijara lease, all expenses and losses to the asset are the liability of the lessor, since the ownership is with the lessor. In a conventional lease, however, the lessor gets rent on his money and all expenses or losses are loaded onto the lessee. In an Ijara lease, if the bank appoints the lessee as its agent to purchase the asset to be leased, the risk of the asset will be that of the bank, as long as the client serves as its agent for purchase of the asset. However, in a conventional lease, all risks are borne by the lessee. What happens if I am unable to pay the rent on time? It is forbidden in Sharia to charge any additional amount in case of default of payment of rent. That would amount to riba, which is impermissible in Sharia. However, in case of default, you may be liable to pay some money to charity. Let's recap what we have learnt in this module. The major norms of Islamic finance are prohibition of riba, prohibition of gharar, prohibition of al-qimar and al-maisir, sharing of risk and reward in business, prohibition of non-Sharia compliant contracts. Islamic financial products and operations are based on these norms. Takaful, an alternative to the conventional insurance system in Islamic finance, is based on the concept of ta'awun, meaning mutual help. Trading, the basis of Islamic finance. At the Islamic Bank, very soon Kabir grasps the fundamentals of the Islamic financial system. He is also introduced to the various financial options, which are broadly based on the principles of trading and the contract of sale. Islam puts emphasis on trading for acquisition of wealth. The Holy Quran says, Allah has allowed trading and prohibited riba. Some related issues. The marked price, once agreed upon, cannot be changed. This is a sale, and once the deal is finalized, the ownership of the sold goods and the risks and the rewards associated with it gets transferred to the buyer. The seller has the right to the credit price that has been agreed upon. This is also to avoid any gharar between us. Similarly, rollover murabaha is not allowed, as it means that the bank is getting interest on the debt that it had created by way of murabaha. Murabaha cannot be used for paying bills. That is not permitted. Let me clarify. The process of a murabaha transaction. There is a logical sequence of events with relevant documentation. Here are the steps required to carry out a murabaha transaction. Since you have decided on the car model, apply with us for purchase of the car. Specify the make, model, and the price of the car, and by what time you intend to settle the payment. Since the payment is deferred, a credit evaluation has to be made. We need to know your income and probable cash flows to determine your repayment capacity. We will both agree on the profit margin to be loaded on the cost of the car. Since the Islamic Bank will purchase the car based on your application, you will make a promise to the Islamic Bank to purchase the car once the Islamic Bank has purchased it. You will have to make a down payment to show that you are serious about this transaction. This down payment may be in cash or some other liquid asset. This is normally about 10 to 15% of the cost of the asset. In case you dishonor your commitment to purchase, the down payment will be used to compensate the bank for actual loss to the bank, if any. The bank will then purchase the car and pay 70,000 dirhams to the dealer. The dealer will then transfer the ownership to the bank. Once the bank takes possession of the car, you will sign a sale contract whereby we will sell the car to you at an agreed marked up price. That's the contract price. You now have your car and you will be indebted to the bank to the amount of the marked up contract price. Since the payment for the car is deferred, you will sign an agreement on the nature of security for the credit. In this case, it can be the car itself that will be mortgaged to the bank. Alternatively, the security may be from your existing assets, or the bank may ask for a guarantor who will be liable to pay in case you default. The security or collateral may also be any combination of the above, as we may mutually agree. No, you cannot take the car directly from the dealer. In Murabaha, the item has to be in the possession of the bank before being transferred to the buyer. If there is a loss or damage to the car after the bank has taken its possession and before its sale to the client, the bank will bear the loss. In that case, the bank has two options. The bank has two options if the client fails to purchase the car on time. Option 1. The bank may resort to the khiyari shart with the car dealer. If the client does not purchase the car, the bank will have the option to cancel the sale with the car dealer within a specified number of days, say 3 days. Option 2. The bank may sell the car in the market. If the bank incurs any loss, it can recover the loss from the down payment that it has taken from the client. Conditions for a valid ijara. Transferring only the usufruct and not ownership is necessary. Hence, ownership-related risks and expenses will remain with the lessor. Things having no usufruct at all cannot be leased. For example, barren land cannot be leased. Consumable goods have usufruct, but they cannot be the subjects of ijara. Items like money, eatables, fuel, and so on cannot be leased out because they cannot be used unless they are consumed. Remember, if consumable goods are leased out, it will be deemed to be a loan. All the rules concerning a loan shall accordingly apply. Any rent charged on this invalid lease shall be riba charged on a loan. No, since the ownership is not transferred to you, you will not be liable to pay any taxes. However, the water bills, electricity bills, and all such expenses shall be borne by you. You must not use the asset for any other purpose than what is specified in the agreement. In that case, you can use it however you wish. But you cannot use the asset for unusual purposes unless the bank expressly permits it. You are liable to compensate the bank for any harm to the property caused by misuse or negligence on your part. A lessee is considered as a mean or trustee, and as such he has to take care of the asset as if it is his own. What about the rentals for this? The period of lease and the rentals must be determined in clear terms at the time of contract for the whole period of contract. Will the rent remain fixed for the whole period, or will it change? Different amounts of rent can be fixed for different phases during the lease period. The amount of rent for each phase must be specifically agreed upon at the time of effecting the lease. If the rent for any phase of the lease period is not determined or left at the option of the lessor, the contract would involve gharar. Can the bank unilaterally increase the rent without reference to the contract? No, that would be violating the contract. The lease period shall commence from the date the property is delivered to you in usable form, no matter whether you have started using it or not. If the property has totally lost the function for which it was leased and no repair is possible, the lease shall terminate on the very day such loss has been caused. If the loss is caused by the lessee's misuse or negligence, the lessee will be liable to compensate the bank for the value of the property as it was immediately before the loss. However, damages to the property by earthquakes, floods, etc., which are beyond the control of the lessee, shall be borne by the bank. The process of Ijara. First, you will provide us all the relevant information about the villa, like the name of the seller, the selling price, physical dimensions of the villa, etc. Then, you will apply with us, requesting for Ijara of the asset. You will also promise to take the asset on lease from us upon our purchase of the villa from its original seller. The bank will purchase the villa from its owner. The bank will then lease the villa to you. The ownership of the villa remains with the bank, but you will have the right to use it. You will pay fixed Ijara rentals for agreed periods. Differences between Ijara and Sale. Differences between Ijara and Sale. In Ijara, the ownership of the property remains with the transferor or the lessor. Only the usufruct is transferred to the lessee. In a sale, however, as soon as the contract is executed and delivery is given, the ownership of the property is also transferred to the purchaser. In Ijara, since the ownership remains with the lessor, he has to bear all ownership-related expenses and risks. In Sale, however, all risks and rewards, pass on to the buyer as soon as he takes possession of the item. An Ijara contract can be executed before or after the possession of the item by the lessor for its instant or future enforcement. Sale, where enforcement is agreed from any future date, is not a valid sale. A sale becomes effective as soon as the contract is executed. Ijara is always time-bound. It has to be for a fixed time and can be terminated with mutual consent at any time. Sale implies permanent transfer of ownership of the asset to the buyer just after the sale is executed. Difference between Card and Dane. Funds borrowed as Card are repayable on demand. Card, or a gratuitous amount given to the needy, must not be confused with the Arabic term Dane, which is debt. What is debt? In a cash sale, the buyer makes the entire payment of the price on the spot. He does not owe any further payment to the seller on that particular transaction. Thus, there is no debt created. Debt is the outcome of a credit transaction. A debt is created when the buyer postpones or defers the payment to a future date. The amount cannot be demanded before the agreed due date. Both Card and Dane reflect liability to pay. In that sense, every Card is also a Dane, but every Dane is not necessarily a Card. Here's an example. An Islamic bank sells a car on Murabaha to Abdullah for 30,000 dirhams. The agreed profit is 5,000 dirhams. Abdullah is in debt to the Islamic bank for 30,000 dirhams. He will pay this debt, or Dane, to the Islamic bank over a period of 48 months. The Islamic bank cannot demand early payment from Abdullah, as this is a credit transaction where there is a profit element of 5,000 dirhams. Unlike a Dane, Card is a voluntary act by a lender who lends money without expecting any return or profit. Thus, the lender can call back the amount lent at any time in case of need. In Islamic finance, every offer of financial assistance should be Cardale Hassan. Any profit or return on Card is riba and therefore not in compliance with Sharia. Unlike a Dane, Card is a voluntary act by a lender who lends money without expecting any return or profit. Thus, the lender can call back the amount lent at any time in case of need. In Islamic finance, every offer of financial assistance should be Cardale Hassan. Any profit or return on Card is riba and therefore not in compliance with Sharia. Card, for raising current deposits. Islamic banks apply the concept of Card predominantly for raising current or demand deposits. Current account deposits are considered loans that have to be returned by the Islamic bank when the depositor demands it. No profit will be paid to the depositor for deposits in current account. But there may be instances when an Islamic bank may provide some form of return to current account depositors. Let us suppose various depositors keep various sums of money in current accounts with an Islamic bank. At the end of the financial year, the Islamic bank may earn a profit exceeding its business target. The Islamic bank finds that the current account portfolio was largely responsible for the substantial increase in its profits. It may therefore declare a percentage of profit as a gift to its current account depositors. This voluntary decision of granting a gift to its current account depositors or the Card lenders is not considered riba. If giving gifts to the current account holders becomes a regular practice, it would imply that the loan necessarily yields a profit and it becomes riba. Current account deposits are also known as wadi'a deposits. According to Sharia, when the amana is used by the ameen or trustee, it becomes a loan. the Ameen has to repay the full amount to the Card lender, even if the Ameen has suffered a loss in his business. Cardale Hassan, benevolent amount to the needy. Cardale Hassan is benevolent financial assistance to the needy. The social and economic objectives of Cardale Hassan are: 1. Helping the poor and needy. 2. Building a better relationship between the rich and the poor. 3. Getting optimum benefits from the resources given by nature. 4. Removing unemployment and improving the living standards of the poor by way of mutual help and harmony in the society. And 5. Reducing the social and economic differences in the society. A person seeks an amount only if he is really in need of the money. In Islam, it is the moral duty of those who have surplus funds to help their less fortunate brothers in time of need. Cardale Hassan is an interest-free amount extended on a goodwill basis by Islamic banks. At times, the debtor may pay an extra amount beyond the principal amount as a token of appreciation to the creditor. As in the case of current account deposits, paying an extra amount should not become the normal practice. Amir now wishes to pursue his post-graduation studies in London and approaches the Islamic bank for a loan. Good morning, sir. Good morning. How can I help you, sir? My name is Amir. I'm a doctor. Is it true that Islamic Bank extends Cardale Hassan for higher studies? Yes, we do extend Cardale Hassan as a social service and for the welfare of the needy in the society. Basically, the purpose of this is to help them start their independent economic life and thus raise their standard of living. I would like to know more about Cardale Hassan. The practices of various Islamic banks in card transactions differ. Some Islamic banks provide the privilege of card only to the holders of investment accounts with them. Some extend cards to all bank clients. Some restrict card to needy students and other economically weaker sections of the society. Some Islamic banks provide card to small producers, farmers and entrepreneurs who are not qualified to get finance from other sources. Will there be any additional charges for the amount? The Islamic bank is allowed to charge the borrower the actual administrative expenses incurred. There is no markup or interest paid on a card transaction. What are the rules governing this transaction?